Hello friends, good morning and welcome to the EduSat network. Our topic of discussion today shall be cricket and Indian culture, a very interesting topic as it attracts a large section of the population. It gathers them together in a nationalist fervor as well. So friends, it would be very interesting to know what this topic entails and what it involves, and to know more about this, we have this in our studio, our subject expert Dr. Shankar Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of History, Hindu College, University of Delhi. And with this brief introduction, I welcome Sir to our studio. Sir, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Urvashi, and good morning, viewers. Today, we shall be talking about something which captures the imagination of Indian youth and Indian population as well, and that is cricket. Cricket as a sport is one thing. When we tend to know about the details, rules, regulations, and attainments, achievements, defeats, wins, but cricket as part of Indian culture, the way it made its into all of us know that cricket is not something which was born in India. It has a very distinct colonial context through which it got introduced in India. So there is something to be had so far as understanding the growth of cricket as a sport in India is concerned, because it is inextricably linked with the colonial context, and also the fact that it did capture national imagination and continues to do so even today, although quite a few things that we shall be talking about have undergone a tremendous change in the present times, in the commercial times. But there is, as I said, in this historical perspective of seeking to understand the growth and development of cricket in India, we can actually have a very good insight into the culture and the social norms, the community feelings, the communal aspect of Indian society, and the national aspiration to overcome the identity politics through ascriptive principles. They are all unlocked if we study the growth and development of cricket in India. And in this context, it is extremely important to also understand that since cricket is not born of Indian conditions, therefore, there is something that we will discuss with respect to the history of cricket as a game itself, that is in England. And when we seek to do that, we find that this stick and ball phenomena, which constitutes the basic activity so far as this sport is concerned. This goes back to several centuries before the Industrial Revolution began in England, say in the 1780s. And there is no very distinct recorded history as such, but it is said that by the times of the Tudors, cricket had become very popular in England. But even before the rise of the Tudors, we have probably some reference to cricket as a game in the Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, which can be dated to around 13th century. Where something of this sort, something of this stick and ball, bat and ball kind of activity as a sport is referred to. And interestingly, we find that in the 14th, 15th centuries, the aristocracy did not quite like their boys taking to this game, because it was time consuming and it was not resulting into anything so far as their own aristocratic feudal values were concerned, which required them to hone their skill with respect to warfare and so forth. So what they actually wished to is to allow the people under them to have some kind of a training in archery rather. So archery was the first game which was at the loggerhead so far as the popularity of cricket as a game is concerned in England. So the feudal lords and the aristocrats wanted their wards, wanted their men to rather take to cricket, to rather take to archery than cricket, because through archery one could hone the military skill and so forth, and it could be used in the frequent warfares, which was a characteristic feature of the feudal life. However, much to the you can say advantage to cricket as a game came the invention of gunpowder, and gunpowder meant that archery as a skill was not valued that much from henceforth after the invention of gunpowder, because the striking capacity of any army was tremendously enhanced once you had access to gunpowder and some equipments associated with it. So the feudal lords would rather try to have these equipments rather than the archers, and therefore this kind of a ban which was imposed on cricket as a game was somewhat lifted with the invention of gunpowder, and men could take to playing cricket in a rather uninhibited manner. And this probably was another stage so far as the development and popularity of cricket as a game in England is concerned. And thereafter, we find very distinct evidence of cricket being played as a popular game in England. Of course, the rules and regulations were still not codified, and since it is a very ancient kind of a game in the sense that it was not born of the conditions of post-industrial society, or for that matter industrial society, therefore cricket as a game, and you would notice this, is very distinct from several other games. And let's for a moment not think of the instant version of the game in the form of 2020, which is of a very recent origin, or for that matter one-day cricket that all of us are so familiar with. But let's think of the test cricket, which is more historical and which has a more stronger legacy. So while one-day cricket is born of the 1970s and instant cricket of 2020 version is all the more newer phenomena, but test cricket has a long ancestry. And you will notice that cricket as a game, the test cricket version, is very much distinct from several other games that we know. It could be hockey, football, basketball, polo, or whatever, badminton, tennis, and so forth. This test cricket ran into 6 days with 1 day in between as the rest day. It involves 2 innings. Now, of course, the rest day is no more there, but when we were going to school, of course, we have seen that version of the game where the 3rd or the 4th day or even 2nd day could be converted into a rest day for the team, and the test cricket would end only after 6 days of play. The teams are supposed to play 2 innings. And it's a very, you can say, lethargic kind of a game where, after playing for 5 continuous days, the game can end in a tame draw. And this is something which is just not possible in several other games that we know of. maximum it takes 3 hours, 4 hours. I mean, longest Wimbledon games or lawn tennis games would not go beyond 3 to 4 hours. And I'm talking of the male version, which involves 5 sets. And cricket goes on for 5 days, 2 innings for both the teams, and yet ending in a tame draw. And this was something which was very common in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and so forth. And why could the people accept this kind of a game, and how could such a game with such a slow rhythm of its playing, or the pace, the sheer slowness of the pace with which the game is played, how could that capture the imagination of people in an age where things are more and more urban, instantaneous, precise, and so forth? You will also notice that quite a few aspects of the game, that is cricket, even today, even in the instant version, is still not codified, is still not clear, is still not fixed. For instance, all of you notice that the size of the cricketing field is not fixed. So, if you are playing at Firozshah Kotla in Delhi, of course, the field size would be somewhat less as compared to say a game in Perth or Adelaide. Then you have at places in England or Australia where the size of the stadium or the cricketing arena where the game is played is not circular, it is oval in shape. So, square boundaries are closer as compared to straight boundaries. So, these things are accepted, and if you seriously think of it, in the modern times, such kinds of things are just not acceptable in any other games where everything is so fixed, so precise, so measured. So, quite a few things are changing as we will discuss in the subsequent part of our lecture in the pressure of commercialization, TV viewership, and so forth. But for a very long period of time, even in the industrial age, cricket did continue and survive as a game which was at odds with the times in which it was fast gaining popularity and being played and being lapped up by the subcontinental population in a big way, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka alike. So, what is it that allowed this game to get instituted or get inextricably linked with the politics and culture and society of the Indian subcontinent? So, these are the things that we would be trying to examine in today's discussion around cricket. So, as I said that this was the beginning in which cricket emerged as a game in England. We talked of Canterbury Tales, we talked of the Tudor age, we talked of the coming of the gunpowder and archery getting sidelined as a popular sport, or as a sport where impetus would come from the aristocrats and so forth. So, important for us to understand is that the oddities that we have been talking of with relation to cricket as a game, which survive even to the present times, are primarily because cricket as a game is one of the rarest games whose rules and regulations were codified in the pre-industrial times. So, it could be around probably it was around 1744 or some times around it, where for the first time some of the basic aspects of the game were codified, or the rules were set, and it probably fixed that 22 yards would be the length of the pitch on which the game is played. Similarly, the height of the wicket was fixed, and interestingly, in the beginning, around this time, around 1744, the bowlers used to bowl underarm and not overarm the way we do it today. So, the height of the wicket was somewhat low, and that was fixed around this time. Then probably it was 24 inches or 22 inches around that, and there were no 3 wickets as such. So, there were just 2 wickets on either side, on the bowling side and the batting side, and the batsmen had to run for whatever runs they scored and prop their bat into the space between the 2 wickets. So, this was like propping the bat in between the 2 wickets, and whoever did it first, if the fielder could prop in the ball before the batsman could prop in his bat, then the batsman was out. Therefore, the concept of popping crease as we know it today actually emerged from there. So, now we have 3 wickets and there is no requirement for the batsman to prop in the bat while taking a single or a double, but they just have to put their bat in the popping crease, and that is how this popping crease actually came into being. Similarly, there were some other, the width of the bat was still undecided, and it was decided very much later, and that had several controversies to its credit. The material of the bat was also something which was not very fixed, and we have instances of controversies related to it. The legendary Australian fast bowler Dennis Lillee is supposed to have come with an aluminium bat in the 1980s. Similarly, Ricky Ponting, another Australian cricketer who was also the captain, was in news for having come to bat with a graphite coated bat. So, since these aspects of the game were still probably not codified with precision, and there were elements of ambiguity associated with it, so these controversies kept coming in cricket even in the modern times. The point that we are making here from the point of view of the historical anchorage and the oddity of cricket as a game is that quite a few rules, regulations and equipments, etc. of this game cricket were fixed and codified in the pre-industrial times itself. And when we say pre-industrial times, we should be aware of the fact that it is the rural ambience that we are talking of. It is not the fast-paced rhythm of life with lot of precision and everything fixed that we are talking of. We are talking of pre-industrial times where by and large the ethos is rural, and the rhythm of life is very slow. And therefore, you will also notice, apart from these slow and unfixed aspects of the game, you will also notice that quite or a good number of the cricketing gears and equipments, if you delete the recent 30-40 years of cricket's history, where protective gears have come up in a big way in the forms of pads, gloves and now even helmets. If you keep that aside, which are recent entrants to the game, you will notice that a good part of cricketing equipments and gears are actually made of objects which are readily available in the rural scenario, in the agricultural scenario, and very few synthetic plastic kind of items are used in cricket if you keep aside the last 30-40 years. So, whether it is cricketing bat which is made of timber, whether it is the wickets which is again made of timber, whether it is the ball, cricketing ball, which is made of leather, cork, twine, which are all available in the rural ambience. So, there is a distinct stamp of rural and agrarian way of life in playing cricket. So, this is about the game codification and also the equipments in a sense in order to understand as to why this game appears to be at odds with several other games which were born of industrial times, or for that matter the game might be ancient, or the game might have emerged at a time before the coming of the industrial revolution, but actual codification of the game happened in the post in the times which are post the industrial revolution. So, all these games that we are aware of are by and large were codified in the 19th century, or maybe even in the 20th century, and therefore, there is no ambiguity there. There is no such oddities that we encounter in these games. But cricket as a game, as I said, the first attempt to codify it was made much before the advent of the industrial revolution in 1744 itself. Of course, subsequently Marylebone Cricket Council, MCC as we know it. So, Melbourne Cricket Club was born. This was in the 1870s, or sorry 1780s, or the around that time. So, there of course quite a few other aspects of the game were codified, but as we see that still it is the pre-industrial times that we are talking of. It was not until the middle of the 19th century that most of the European countries like Britain, Germany and France got substantially industrialized. So, that is one thing about cricket as a game and the oddities that we encounter. Now, let us try and understand some of the values associated with cricket, and that is where its institutionalization in India or Indian subcontinent in the colonial context becomes extremely important. Now, if we look at the growth of cricket in the subcontinent from the perspective of the values with which it was played and the impact on politics, the kind of imagery that it threw to the native population. So, these are some interesting aspects of the game which need some careful consideration. Now, examining cricket from this point of view, we find that when cricket was played in England itself and it was yet to come to India, there is a distinct stamp of its history, which is whose ethos is very much present in the way cricket was transacted or played in the colonial times, and even today it does carry some legacies of that past of cricket. All of us know that the benefit of doubt even today in the game of cricket always goes to the batsman. Why is it so? Even in other very very simple looking terminologies, you will discover that any commentator would say that the pitch seems to be good. A flat pitch which is not at all helpful to either the fast bowler or the spin bowler is regarded as a good pitch. So, a good pitch is a flat, placid pitch where there is very little scope of assistance to the bowlers in general. So, a pitch which is conducive for scoring runs, which is good for batsmen, is regarded as good pitch. Now, if cricket is a game which involves batting, bowling and fielding, then of course, there was no need for this value loaded description, but this is how it is, because historically it has been played with a distinct sense of advantage to the batsman. And this is where the discussion becomes interesting and very revealing as to what are the social norms which are interwoven in the game of cricket or in the growth of the game of cricket itself. And this is something which is pre-colonial, the way it evolved in England itself. It is noticed that in the early part of its history, say in the 17th century, 18th century, cricket, when it was played in England, it was organized, the teams were organized as amateurs and the player or the professionals. So, amateurs would be the aristocrats who would be playing the game for the sheer joy of it, for the sheer aesthetics of it. The professionals are the ones who are playing the game for or in return of something. So, they are playing the game for money. Of course, when we say playing the game for money in the 17th, 18th centuries, let's not misunderstand it with reference to the kind of money that cricketers make today. Of course, it involved very less amount and it was played for a pittance, but that is how it was. And the professionals and how it was how the money was made is by some aristocratic say sponsorship, or the entry fee used to be distributed amongst the professionals. And who were these professionals? These professionals were not very well off people, and usually these professionals were bowlers. So, that's where the bias gets revealed in the early part of the game itself, that professionals are the ones who are not very well off, who are not having aristocratic lineage, and they are the ones who are playing the game for the want of money. And usually the amateurs are the batsmen who would play the game for the sheer joy of it, for the sheer aesthetics of it, and they usually also are aristocrats. And therefore, while they are amateurs and the other set of people who usually are bowlers are referred to as professionals or merely players. So, and also very revealing is the fact that if you think of the early part of the game and the stadiums where cricket was played in England, there were separate enclosures in which the amateurs would sit and the professionals would sit. So, this sense of hierarchy, the social and economic hierarchy, was very much visible in the game itself. The way it was organized, the way it was played, the way people were seated despite being the members of the team, of the same team. So, they are sitting separately sorry, and So, the amateurs and the professionals would sit in separate enclosures, and they have separate entry points. And that buttressed the sense of social hierarchy, the aristocratic and non-aristocratic origin of players in a very clear way. And this is something which is very much visible even in terms of captaincy of the game. Not until 1940s did the first English captain actually the fact that until about 1940s, all the English captains, cricketing captains, were batsmen. And it was only from around 1940s that the bowlers were also appointed as captain of cricketing teams. So that bias is very much heavily loaded in favor of the batsmen. So we have seen the sense of hierarchy being very visible. Also, if you look at the early part of the game, the way it was played, the sense with which it was imbued, there were very famous public schools in England. Eton and Harrow and so forth. It is generally said that the Battle of Waterloo was won not on the battlefield but on the cricketing or on the playing fields of Eton. This is because Eton, which was a public school, inculcated not only through its education but several other sports, most importantly cricket, a sense of discipline, a sense of hierarchy, a sense of order, which are of critical importance in warfare. And it is said that when cricket tournaments were held between prominent boarding schools or public schools at Eton, Harrow and so forth, it overshadowed even Wimbledon lawn tennis games. So this was the popularity and this was the sense with which the aristocracy and the professionals took to this game. So there is a lot of sense of gentlemanship, so to say, associated with this game, which is spoken of even in today's times, despite several ugly situations on field. It is revealed, or the purists of the game do talk about it, that it is a gentleman's game, and therefore such overt show of emotions and so forth are not quite called for, and it vitiates the actual spirit and ethos of the game. So all these things are part and parcel of the history of the game itself, the way it was played, and the way English people thought or conceived of this game. So at Eton, it was believed that by playing cricket, one would induce a sense of discipline, a sense of hierarchy, a sense of gentlemanship amongst the players, and that was part of the personality building exercise for the future army men, for the future service people who would be manning the administration in different capacities. And they are the people who are coming to India as colonial administrators, as military persons, or in whatever other capacity. Now, for so far as its lapping up by Indian population is concerned, we get a reference, early reference to again in the 18th century of some English sailors who would who probably was located in Cambay, and he would love to play cricket just to overcome the homesickness. So, probably the sailor used to play cricket in England, and having come to India, he missed it and he wanted to overcome the homesickness, and therefore he started playing it. So, these are some stray references, early references to cricket in India. But over a period of time, we find that clubs were made, and the first formal club was established at Calcutta, of course, which was serving as the capital of the British India at around that time. So, Calcutta Cricket Club (CCC) was made in the last quarter of the 19th century, and there it was an all white affair. So, Europeans used to play the games, and natives had not taken to it in any substantial way, but very soon we find that the Indian fascination with the game also became visible, and Parsis, the Zoroastrians, amongst the native people, were the first who actually took to this game, and they got their own Bombay Gymkhana made for playing cricket, and they would play this game, but interestingly, or contrary to the expected way, the British did not support it. So, instead, what we see is that there was some kind of a controversy between the white population, the British, who would play cricket at Bombay Gymkhana, and they would resist the Parsis or the Zoroastrians, the native population, who would play cricket on the same ground. So, ultimately the Parsis had to pull out from the Bombay Gymkhana, and they had to make a separate club and place where they could play the game. So, if we are thinking that British deliberately introduced the game to India, that is something which is not probably substantiated by the sequence of events, but definitely there is this covert charm of getting somewhat associated with colonial masterly gentlemanship qualities, the element of fair play, which was so eloquently spoken of with respect to cricket as a game, that players of cricket are supposed to be gentlemanly, and they are supposed to be playing it in a very fair fashion. Although, let's also understand that the umpires invariably used to be drawn from the amateurs and not professionals. So, there is that sense of aristocratic bias visible in the rules and regulation and its implementation in the game itself. So, they would ensure, and the professionals or the non-aristocratic people would just understand this, that the amateurs or the aristocrats who are playing the game stand for fair play, and this got translated into some kind of a general understanding, which helped the colonial masters in transferring this image on the native population, that the colonial masters, who essentially are aristocrats, usually stand for fair play. They would not resort to illegal ways, or they would not resort to manipulations, and they are very gentlemanly and so forth. So, the colonial project of projecting a certain kind of white man's burden of civilizing the uncivilized, the native population, got buttressed through this image building through cricket. So, these are the covert ways in which the colonial project actually was somewhat supported by the game cricket itself, and the native population also, because the Indian national movement was yet to pick up in a big way. Therefore, there was some kind of a covert charm in for the native population also in playing cricket and being seen as gentlemanly, being seen as the people who are sophisticated and who would stand for fair play and not resort to unfair means and so forth. So there is that sense which is visible in the early part of the way the native population lapped it up. Also important for us to understand is that the politics of the time is also very much influencing the way natives are taking to this game. As we just said that Parsis were the first to formally have their own club and so forth. Similarly, there were other sections of Indian population. We are talking of the closing decades of the 19th century here, 1880s, 1890s and so forth. This is also the time, if we look at Indian history in general, this is also the time when religious identities, communal identities, caste identities, or in a broad sense, identities based on ascriptive principles. Ascriptive principles would mean identities fixed by birth, like religion, caste, etc. They were becoming very prominent in Indian society and politics. And this period of which we are talking of, that is the closing decades of the 19th century, is known for these tendencies in Indian history. And the colonial masters, the British administrators, were more than willing to latch on to this, rather accentuate these principles in order to divide the native people. So the British claim of unifying India under one uniform British administration and thereby fostering nationalism as such is very much punctured here, because we find that very soon along the lines of the Parsis, Hindus started having their own cricketing club. Indian Muslims would have their own cricketing club, and therefore we have four major communal groups, so to say. One is of course the Europeans, including British. The other is the Parsis, the other is the Hindus, the other is the Muslims, and this constituted the quadrangular. And this is how the tournaments were held, and the British administration did nothing to break these principles, despite knowing fully well that they will cut into progressive feelings, they will cut into reformist ethos, they will cut into modernity principles, because they were all aligned along the ascriptive principles of community, ascriptive principles of communal identity. So, religious groups or religious identities become the prime factor in getting cricket organized and the tournaments organized. First to sense this, first to sense the problems associated with it was none other than Mahatma Gandhi himself, who would understand that these games, despite being popular, are very divisive in nature for Indian national movement and for the emergence of the sense of oneness and togetherness so far as native Indians are concerned. And therefore, Gandhi would rather advocate for some kind of a national championship where teams organized on religious principles and teams organized on religious identities were not the order of the day. So this was what was Gandhi's wish. But the colonial context, the communal flair and the politics of the time, particularly under the colonial constraint, were such that Gandhi's ideas could not take shape, and it is the same norm of quadrangular which continued, and of course subsequently new religious teams were also added to it, making it pentangular and so forth. But the point that we are making here is that despite the tall claims of civilizing and modernizing, the British administration did nothing to stop these tendencies developing in the way cricket was organized and played in India, and it rather supported it covertly, and this gelled with their principle of divide and rule over the native population in a very big way. So the linkage of cricket's growth as a game with not only the social and cultural aspect of India in the sense of hierarchy and so forth, but even with the politics of the time is very much visible here. Also true is the fact that the way we spoke about the batsmen and the bowlers coming from different backgrounds, different social backgrounds. Of course, since it was taken up by the Indians much late, therefore that sense is not that prominent in India, but the legacies can in stray incidents or some feelings can still be located, and that has primarily to do with the way cricket as a game evolved in England itself, and subsequently was introduced the way it was lapped up by the native population as such. So the modern domestic championship of cricket, the Ranji trophy that we get to see, that was again organized very deliberately, cutting away from the religious identities or religious fixations, and it is a post independent India initiative that such tendencies which were divisive and which were very much in operation in the colonial times were not continued in the independent times, and therefore now in the domestic circuit of the competition that we have associated with cricket, no more you find these religious bodies having their own cricket teams and so forth, but in the colonial context, that is the way it was actually introduced. So this is one thing that we see so far as Indian culture and its linkage with the growth and development of cricket itself is concerned. And then we have the coming of the commercialization. We all are aware of the Kerry Packer incident in the 1970s, late 1970s, where pajama cricket was introduced, one day cricket was introduced in contrast to the usual format of test cricket, and there it was the viewership, television viewership, radio viewership, and the spectacle of cricket which was sold as TV rights or audition or for that matter radio rights. Advertisements were brought in a very big way, and very soon the one day cricket gained popularity. and quite a few elements which we outlined as oddities of cricket towards the beginning of our lecture, they receded into the background, and synthetic gears, synthetic equipments like pads, gloves, headgear, thigh gear and so forth, they were introduced, cutting away from the very dominant rural ethos of the game. So that is one, and very soon we also find that in the subcontinent itself, we have very fast emerging commercial pressures giving rise to the instant 2020 cricket, and that meant that it is the viewership, it is the spectacle, it is the revenue generation which would dictate the way game is played, the way rhythm of the game is paced, and therefore the rural anchorage of cricket as a game was jettisoned in favor of instant cricket, which is more entertaining, which is spectacular. So there is colorful dress that the teams have to put on instead of the conventional all white attire of both the teams. Then there is a constraint in terms of time. It has to finish with a particular verdict, either win or loss, and it cannot end in a draw. So these things came in the context of commercialization, urbanization, the constraint of space. So once the urban settings became the arena of playing cricket, of course the size and shape of quite a few things had to be fixed. So bat width was fixed. Similarly, several other aspects of the game was made more precise and fixed, and they all occurred in the context of the commercial constraints. And in India, as we all are witness to this fact, that when 2020 cricket came, of course the purists were arguing to the contrary, but very soon it is the commercial constraints which dictated the way the game is played, and this is how we are in a state of situation where we see the game in its present format, and we can see the contrast that it reveals from its rural pre-industrial anchorage as such.
Thank you so much, sir, for the very interesting and grasping lecture we had today, talking about cricket, also how it is immersed within the Indian culture from times to come. So again, thank you so much, sir, for that, and again viewers, keep watching us, stay tuned in. Thanks a lot, have a wonderful day ahead.